Amazing job on that purse system, Hot Toys. Extra googly. Here she is, AHSOKATano. Let's check her out. You know, I was probably just like the rest of you when Ahsoka first premiered in the Clone Wars movie. I was like, who is this weird dollar store 14-year-old Shock T knockoff character following Anakin around trying to save Jabba the Hutt's baby slug child? And then by the end of the third season, I was like, Ahsoka's my girl! So here we are, spending $200+ on a action figure of a 17-year-old girl alien. Normal for 36-year-old men, isn't it? Get a first impression here. This, she's got some Lekku and Montral protection, excuse me. Okay, first impressions. That's really, really beautiful. That's really, really beautiful, I have to say. Like, everyone's always loved the Togruta character design, and obviously we all got exposed to that through Master Shock T. And this is probably why Filoni was like, hey, that's a beautiful design. Why don't we make it the design or the alien race for the character that he created? And it was really a good choice. I mean, amazing job, Filoni. Thank you, Ashley Eckstein, too, for hanging in there with us fans. Let's get the wrappings off her, and we'll take a closer look. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna be totally honest, I almost never read instructions, but this figure, because I was looking forward to this figure so much, I was like, I need to read all the instructions. Isn't that a crazy looking phase? Ooh, I'm creepy Ahsoka. It's kind of nifty, different style here probably because of Ahsoka's clothing and outfit design. You remove a button from the lightsaber and you attach these sort of rubber pieces it comes with, which were packaged with the additional wrist pegs, and you put them on to get them, they're calling it, get it onto the apron. And then you put it, you remove the peg, you remove the button from the lightsaber, you put these pieces that were packaged with the additional wrist pegs into the side of the apron, is what they're calling it, and then put the lightsaber onto that peg, and then they can kind of hang off the side of her skirt, or her skirt armor. I wouldn't really call it an apron, but I would call it sort of skirt armor. I was thrilled to know she was coming with a thermal detonator because, you know, everyone's more intimidating when they're holding a thermal detonator. So, looks great. You know, basic. I think the one in the film, a little bit more detail, a little bit more shape there, but it's meant to probably look more like the cartoon one. So I'm thinking, of course, the Return of the Jedi one that Leia Boushh holds, or Boushh, however you want to say it. We've got the holographic projector here that's just a peg-in for these different holograms, and the bottom actually looks really cool. That's a nice detail. Here, let me hold that up better. That's a nice little detail there. Looks nice and shiny. Ooh, shiny. Hello. We've got our peg-in Yoda hologram. I am a puppet. Our peg-in Fly Guy hologram, or Whiny Anakin hologram, whatever you want to call it. And we've got our peg-in Obi-Wan Kenobi hologram, or Oob Scooby-Doo Banooby, who has the silliest name in the galaxy hologram. And I did notice when I was putting in the Anakin one mostly, but also the Obi-Wan Kenobi, I had to kind of twist to get this in. And maybe I can demonstrate, but if I was just pushing this into the peg, it was kind of bending this lower piece forward, and I could see how you could very easily break the peg off if you just try to shove it in. So I pushed it in place and kind of twisted back and forth and applied some light pressure, and that got it where it needed to be. But I could see how, especially with the Anakin one, since the base is quite thin, that where his in between his feet, how you could break that off really easily. So be careful, guys. She comes with 3 additional right hands. We've got the open sort of reaching palm hand. We've got the punching, I am Ahsoka, get out of my way hand, and the holding a lightsaber hand. And she has, of course, the open, completely open hand on her out of the box. Her left hand, she comes with only 2 extra left hands instead of 3. She's got the lightsaber wielding hand, and these aren't the droids you're looking for hand, probably my favorite hand that she has. I'm going to try to use that as often as I can. I like that hand, very cool hand. She has this beautiful cloak that we will get on her that looks like it's made of a nice fabric. We've just got a folded over edge that's sewn down there. So, you know, large seam, but I don't expect anything more than this. I think this is what a regular fabric clasp. Nothing too special, but hey, it does the job, and that's all we needed to do, right? We've got a wired hood so you can shape it, and 2 little areas for her montrals. Remember, the ones on the bottom are Lekku, and the ones on the top are montrals. Lekku and montrals. Lekku and montral.
Hump and doolap. Hump and doolap.
The weapon of a Jedi, her lightsabers. This is the larger lightsaber, the katana style, if you will, and it has the removable lightsaber peg. You can add in the whoosh whoosh effect. That's what it's formally called. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, or wing wing. As groundskeeper Willie says, that's not how you wing.
Lightsaber and the wing, wing, wing. That's not how you wing. God!
Looks great. I pretty much plan to display her probably with either these or completely off lightsabers, depending on where I'm displaying her. And then she's got her smaller, I believe, Tonto, what it's called, style lightsaber with the removable blade. Looks really good. She's got a pretty standard basic design in the cartoon. It's not overly designed, so we're not getting hyper detail on this. It's just a good, simple Ahsoka, straightforward design. Because we really bought this, of course, for the character. Not so much for the saber, but for the character. And this is a very, very important tool. It is for the lovely Purr's Eyes system. And Hot Toys even branded it for us. Hot Toys, weird thingamajig for pokey pokey, pointy pointy. And I absolutely love, I of course was worried when they showed the first prototype that these Lekku and montrals would be stiff and you'd have almost no movement. You just have like side to side movement like you see here. But they made them bendable. Thank you, Hot Toys. I really appreciate that. And this feels quite strong. Actually, the arm rubber and silicone here, whatever this particular chemical mix of this material is definitely softer than this. This feels more like a vinyl. And so it does feel like it will retain its structure much, much better. This definitely feels more like a vinyl or an acrylic type material. This definitely feels more like a rubber or a silicone style material, or at least in that chemical family. So this has got wires in it. I love that, so I can do this. And if you didn't know, I'm sure you probably know if you're watching this video because you're a super nerd just like Ahsoka and me, the Twi'leks and the Togruta have their own secret languages that they use. It's basically a form of sign language using their Lekku. So if you want to have her communicating in Lekku sign language, you can do that. Remember, these are the Lekku and these are the montrals. Squishy montrals. I'm really, really happy to have this figure. I do have to say, though, just so you know where I'm coming from as a Ahsoka fan and a collector, this is actually my second favorite look for Ahsoka. I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's amazing, and I'm just thrilled that we have it. My first favorite look for Ahsoka is, I believe, her look at the beginning of season 4, where they kind of aged her up a little bit. You know, she's no longer like 14. She's like 16 or 17, and they gave her a new costume. I would love to see that costume done by really any company in 6 scale someday. I would absolutely trade one of my figures to get one of those, maybe even with this head sculpt someday. But one of the reasons I wasn't super crazy about this design is number one, it's all sort of in the same tonal range, and I like it, and I like the shapes and designs. This is very Mandalorian. It's got this sort of Mandalorian-esque diamond, and her lines and the linear work on the costume sort of look a lot like the throne room on Mandalore. So it's very indicative of a lot of things that happen in the final season of the Clone Wars. So I get why they made these design choices, and I do enjoy it. I like these shapes here around the hips with these plates. It very reminds me a lot, again, more of Mandalorian esque designs and things, even on the arms here. But from a practicality standpoint, a skirt intersecting and being attached to these hard side plates is really not good for movement. When I was worried about how this would translate to an actual physical form from the cartoon and be able to get movement. But it looks like Hot Toys did leave the under part of the lower armor detached, and they did split the skirt. See if I can show you guys that here. They did split the skirt here, so right at the side of the hip, so you can actually get movement out of it. So I was super worried that this would wrap all the way around, or this would be glued to that, and you wouldn't get very much movement. But they thought of that. Thank you, Hot Toys. And again, the simple design offers a lot of flexibility here in movement. So the greaves can move around. They're not gauntlets, they're greaves. And the shin greaves can move around quite a bit. She does have a movable ankle, and the pleather boots are fairly flexible, but of course you probably don't want to leave it in flexed positions because it will probably crack. I know a lot of you guys like to put different types of acrylic sealers and 303 and wax and whatever you put. I've never had to do that on any of my figures, and I have never had a problem. Now, granted, I've only had about 35 Hot Toys in my life, and so my experience with that or those problems is limited, but I find the more I leave them alone and not put my own finger oils on them, they're just fine. I've never had any problems. The only problems I've ever had is when I've accidentally broken one because I did something dumb. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt, or take that as you will, because I know different climates require different types of care. And so I'm curious to see if this back Lekku is wired. It is! Look at that. I can give her a little raccoon tail. A little coon-tano. That seam is like stitched back and forth, kind of like Legos intersecting, or like a sawtooth formation. Cool. That looks like it's going to be quite strong. These plates are a little off center, but I think that's just because of where the side of the skirt is sitting. And the fabric is nice and flexible, like a nice nylon poly fabric, so shouldn't have any problems with that. And the knee plates are just attached with some elastic, as well as the greaves, the same material on the greaves. So again, really simple design. I was kind of worried about this with the armpits squishing underneath this. I feel like that could be problematic down the road. It seems like they're both doing it, so maybe they intended to do it. I was going to pull it out, but it looks like, now that since they're both like it, it looks like they maybe have meant to do that, have it pushed up underneath there in the armpits. So tickle, tickle. So I will probably leave that alone. This very much is probably the same material that Thor's arms were made out of. I don't know if the Harley Quinn was the same. I did not order that figure, but I saw everybody's complaints about the cracking elbows. So you get lots of movement out of the shoulder. Let me just lift this up here and make sure the shoulder is a separate joint up above. Yes, it is. You could see in there, it's got a ball and socket joint going on. So you don't have to worry about the shoulder being too far up there. It does squish back. Can you see that? You could see how you could remove the silicone. It's not anchored on, and you can actually see, let me see if I can show you guys that. You can see the under skeletal structure and where the screw joint is actually right there. Interesting. At least your armpits don't smell. So you can just push that back down. So lots and lots of movement out of the shoulder. Excelente. But 110 degrees on the elbow. I'm going to go ahead and do the full bend, but I'm going to put it right back because I don't want to damage it. And I did notice these arms do move inside under the silicone. When I first tried to bend this, I did a little off-screen bend. This one bent straight and this one bent in, so the underskeleton was actually turned this way. So you can kind of, you know, pinch it and manipulate it over here. So just be aware that your underskeleton might be twisted one way or the other, the direction you want to do it. So just be aware you're doing that before you do a big bend. You don't want to tear anything that way either. So let's do it. Okay, there we go. There's our 110 degrees and our squished Tano elbow. Yeah, this definitely pulled thin here, so I'm not going to leave it here for any kind of a long period of time. I would for some pictures for maybe 20-30 minutes in a room that is the same temperature as the figure, or the figure is the same temperature as the room. By the way, that's something you guys should be aware of if you're not already. Yeah, looks good. Okay, you guys should be aware of if you get your figure and let's say she's colder than the room you're working in and the ambient temperature is warmer or colder, something that can affect different types of rubbers and silicone is overextending and pulling the molecular bonds or the actual chemical connections that formed when this thing was formed inside of a mold, and you overextend and stress those, and then you have the thermal shock on top of it, like the figure is cold and then the room is warm. That actually could really accelerate cracking and problems or peeling. Vice versa, if your figure's warm and the room is cold, I remember which one I just said, but you get the idea. You want to be careful of that. So if you pull your figure off the shelf and she's been in like a cold glass cabinet and you take her over into the other room and put her under a hot light to take a picture of her, you might be not helping your figure. So it might be wise, if you're going to take pictures or pose her, take her out of the cabinet or wherever you're storing her and put her where you're about to move her around or take pictures of her for like 30 minutes. Just leave her there and walk away. Let her come up to the same ambient temperature of the room. That's something that you learn in the construction world, which I do some stuff in the home installation world. And when you have certain types of plastics or vinyls, especially flooring and different types of wall coverings in homes, it's always best to leave them in the house for as long as you can without gluing them or applying them. Just like leave the vinyl flooring on the floor in the house where it's going to be installed for a week, and then go back and install it. And then it will adjust to the ambient humidity and temperature in the home. And then when you install it, it won't peel up or peel back or push out. It'll stay where you want it. I would theorize that this type of plastic or these plastics would do the same thing in whatever environment you're in. So just something to be aware of, a little tip if you guys weren't aware of that. I'm throwing at you from my experience with different types of plastics and materials being in different temperatures and time zones. So just be aware of that. Same thing goes for the fabrics as well, these vinyl, plasticine fabrics and such. So I want to mess with the eyeballs. So let's take a look at those here. There we go. And you can see that she's got this nice covering here around the neck. And Mrs. Tano's head. That sounds like a sitcom. Mrs. Tano's head. Ba-dum-bum-ba-dum-bum. And the instructions said that the face was magnetic. Now, I have a theory about this faceplate. Let's see if it was true. I talked about it on Geekin' Out's channel when we were doing a What If episode about my theory about why this orange is so much different than the prototype orange. And I believe it has to do with the manufacturing process and what they would have to do. So let's find out. Yep, I was correct. So there is our little headdress. That'd be kind of fun to mold and cast and paint weird crazy colors and put on other figures. So my theory was, if you look at the prototype was a darker orange and the lips were a richer, darker red. Because that was a prototype, whatever sculpt they did, they likely 3D printed and refinished or hand sculpted. I don't know what the artist chose to do, but then they painted a layer of paint over the sculpt. And so the sculpt was a different color and a different type of plastic than the finished product is going to be, like this is. Meaning the color would appear darker, especially with whatever the underlying color of the plastic was. If the plastic was, let's say it was 3D printed in like a dark gray resin on a UV printer, and then you paint an orange over it, it's going to change its color. Or if they painted a base coat that would say like a dark orange or a brown as like a nice skin undertone for somebody with orange skin, which is probably what I would do. That's why I just said that. And then you paint orange over it, it's going to appear as a darker, more burnt earth tone orange. But with the production of figures, and they're doing the PERS system, they have to make the face removable, meaning they have to cast the face and part of this system as one piece. And if they make it like a gray or a brown or whatever, and then they have to paint the face, that actually adds a step to the manufacturing. But if they cast it all out of the exact skin color they want it to be, that eliminates painting the face. All they have to do is add the details to the face. So it's easier for them on the manufacturing side if they cast it out of a solid color, which is the main reason the prototype was a darker orange and this is a much brighter orange, which I actually think this is more accurate and looks great. I like the first one as well. I like the style of it, but I do think this looks slightly more accurate because it's from a cartoon, and of course the cartoon is going to have richer colors, and I think this favors that as well. So also, a side note, if you cast something out of a lighter color of plastic, there is going to be somewhat of a slight effect of subsurface scattering, which is something that is referred to in the CGI world a lot. If you watch Corridor Digital's channel, they talk a lot about stuff like that. And it's also something that people take into mind when they do paint sculptures and figures. They talk, that's the underlying tones of the skin. My skin, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, has the epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. Now, if you're an alien like Ahsoka, you may not have 3 layers of skin. You might have 1 or 20. I don't know. But because you have a thin top layer, the light coming down from my lights in my shop hits my skin and disperses under that first layer and gets darker as it goes down to the 3rd layer before light is blocked. You can also see some of my veins and some of the areas in which blood and capillaries do things. And so you're going to get different tonalities coming through, and that's the subsurface scattering, the scattering of light as it goes through the first layer of skin and goes out. The reason I said all that, sorry, is because when you do something in a lighter color of plastic like this, there is going to be a very, 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 very microscopic and minute amount of that same subsurface scattering. Now, there isn't multiple surfaces happening here, but the light will hit the skin and disperse a little bit before it's blocked by the mass or the structure under this. So it actually makes the skin look more like skin, instead of skin with, shall we say, makeup on it, which is probably more like what the prototype looked like. So thank you for listening to all that, but I think it's interesting because I am fascinated by painting techniques and some manufacturing techniques. A lot of it I am not aware of, and there is other things that I am aware of. So that was one of my things I talked about on Geekin' Out's channel, and I thought was interesting, and that was my guess, and I think my guess was correct. So all they had to do was apply this with, it looks like screen printing. I was not sure if it was like a water slide thing or what, but the face, these look like screen printing where they have either a mold that fits over the face or a reverse of the face that picks up paint and then squishes over the face and applies that really quick. It's a very cool process to watch. If you've seen it, sometimes they use it on cookware and pottery. I think that's what was used to do those details. So all they had to paint instead of the face was this and apply that screen printing. So they probably applied the screen printing and it overlapped right here, and then they painted over the screen printing. So fascinating to think about how they do these things because it gives me ideas as a maker for later. But onto the PERS eye system, which is what this Witchadidja is for. So we get in here with the pokey poke, and we can move the eyes around. Who are you looking at? Isn't that disturbing? Disturbingly cool. Cross-eyed Ahsoka. I found in placing the head back into the headdress here, it seemed to be a little bit easier if I kind of start right here at the point of the forehead and the headdress piece, and then push up like this, and in kind of on the chin, and seemed to pretty much fall right back into place. Any other way I did it required a little bit more futzing, so that seemed to be the smoothest way to get that back into the head. So let's try the cape. It does say to put the cape on first onto the head and then snap it onto the body, and that is because it's supposed to snap under the Lekku. I mean, you don't have to if you want to. She can keep her Lekku warm under the cape if you want to have her do that. But this is the one I'm going to try here. And let's see if we can work this out. And before I snap this in place, I can already see some problems with these getting stuck under the Lekku. Yeah, okay. Lekku. There we go. Snaps on really nice. Snaps on and off pretty easy and nice. So just some little futzing there. Get the hood where you want it. And now you can have winter weather Ahsoka. Looks pretty good. I like it. Very happy with it. Great job, Hot Toys. Great, great job. If you are interested in making a diorama like this for your collectibles, hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell, because in a few days after this video premieres, I will be showing a full build video on how I made this diorama, every single step of the process, so you can do it. If you're interested in purchasing this diorama, you can check out my Etsy store, or you can direct message me on Instagram or email me at oilersworkshop@gmail.com, and we can talk about commissions or anything that you're interested in having done, because that's what I do. I make stuff out of other stuff.